And all it takes is, the straw that breaks the camel's back. It takes that one thing, that just one more thing that the body can't handle it anymore, and the body breaks. And that's what happened to me. I ended up having my father, my stepfather, who was like a real father to me. He was a beautiful parent in my life. And in my 30s, when I'm, in the height of my practice, doing all the things, I'm looking really good on paper, traveling around the world, doing all these things, but I was covering all the symptoms. And then I find out that my dad commits suicide. And he was a surgeon. He was a healer too. And and that rocked my world. It rocked my world, and it brought up a lot of triggers, a lot of emotional triggers of things that I had shoved down my entire life, because that's what we do, right? I mean, we're given coping mechanisms, but we're not taught really how to process emotions and allow them to flow through our body. So stuff started coming up, big triggers, right? 18 months later, my paternal father died.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, talk about triggers. When that happened, so I started getting sick in 2006 after my father committed suicide, my stepfather. I started getting really sick. Like I started having menstrual bleeding. It wouldn't stop. It was like I bled for over 2 years straight. It's a wonder that I still was able to survive. I mean, I was bleeding so heavy that I would bleed through my pants, and I was wearing black pants every day to work. I was wearing like double tampons, double pads, everything I could do to keep myself from leaking. And yet I would leak, and I'd have to change my black pants 2 or 3 times a day. I started having massive panic attacks. I started having a lot of memory loss. So I was having to look at charts. Like I would look at a patient that I knew and loved who was in my community, and I couldn't remember their name.
Mm.
And I was noticing this happening, and it got really scary. And then I started having these other symptoms happening in my body. Like one day I thought I was having a heart attack. My blood pressure was like 198 over 190. Like I should have been dead. And it was from the panic attacks and the stress and the anxiety that I was having. And so I went to the hospital, right? And they're like, "Oh, you're having a panic attack. Here, take the Xanax." You just pat me on the head, take the Xanax and go home. Then my other father dies in 2008, like 18 months later. And I lost my total memory. Like, I didn't even know my son's name. I didn't know my dog's name. I didn't know the name of my practice. I didn't know how to get to work. I didn't know, I couldn't even talk. So I could think of what I wanted to say, but the words wouldn't come out. We went to see neurosurgeons, we saw neurologists, we saw ENTs, we saw, you know, um, doctors that specialize in different kinds of diseases, thinking maybe I got some kind of weird virus or prion disease or something that was like attacking my brain. And nobody knew what was going on. Now, had I been in my 50s or even 60s, this used to be a disease of people in their 80s, but
Right.
now it's in their 50s even. People are getting diagnosed with dementia. If I had been in my 50s, I'm sure they would have diagnosed me with dementia because I had every symptom of dementia, but I was like 36 years old. So they're just like, well, just must be having stress. We don't really know what's wrong with you. They gave me Xanax. Can you believe it? They gave me, and like again, they gave me Xanax, and they gave me some antidepressant, and then they sent me home with an antiviral in case I had some kind of weird virus in my inner ear that was affecting my brain. They had no idea what was going on.